The night air had a sharp bite, and the moon hung high, casting an eerie glow over the empty streets of Kingsport, Tennessee. After 34 years on the force, Officer Mark Houston had seen his fair share of strange and unsettling situations, but even he couldn't shake the feeling that something was different tonight. It was a quiet evening, the kind where you let your mind wander, where the shadows seemed to stretch and bend in the dim light of the street lamps. As he patrolled the familiar streets in Bloomingdale, he received a call over the radio that sliced through the stillness like a knife.
Alpha 4, we have a report of a male threatening suicide. The location, the old sluice bridge in Long Island. Caller states he's talking about seeing the devil.
Houston's stomach dropped. In the back of his mind, he had prepared for countless emergencies. Robberies, domestic disturbances, car accidents, but a man on the precipice of life and death was a weight no amount of training could fully equip him to handle. He turned on his sirens, the wail harmonizing with the thrum of adrenaline in his veins as he sped towards the bridge. The old sluice bridge was a relic of the past, an arched structure that had weathered storms but stood resilient after decades but was no longer used for traffic. As he approached, the faint silhouette of a figure could be seen at the edge, teetering dangerously close to the precipice. Mark also seemed to see a faint shadow standing behind the silhouette. Houston parked his cruiser a safe distance away and stepped out, his heart pounding. The chill of the night hit at his cheeks and his hands, but all he could focus on was the man before him. He could see him clearly now. Disheveled hair, a wild look in his eyes, and clothes that appeared 2 sizes too big, hanging on him like discarded fabric. He thought he saw 2 people, but figured it was the moon or shadows playing with his sight. "Hey there," Houston called, keeping his voice steady, emanating calmness. The man turned, his expression a mask of turmoil, eyes darting around as if in search of something unseen. "I'm Officer Houston. I'm here to help you." The man's lips curled into a grimace. "Help? You don't understand. He's coming for me. The devil. He's right behind me." Officer Houston looked, squinting his eyes, but saw no one. Houston took a step closer, keenly aware of the man's precarious position. "I'm listening. You can tell me what it's about. What's he saying?" The man's breath came in quick, ragged gasps. "He whispers to me. He says I need to jump. To end the pain." His gaze flickered towards the rushing water below, reflecting the moonlight like shards of glass. "I can't escape him. He says, I own your soul, and you are mine." Placing his hands deliberately in view, Houston kept his voice soft and soothing. "You're not alone. Not anymore. Let me help you. Can you step away from the ledge?" For a moment, the man's eyes looked lost, teetering between the abyss within and the safety of the ground. Houston could see a flicker of doubt cross his face, and he pressed on, trying to find the right words to reach him. "Now, you're stronger than you think. The devil doesn't control you. You have the power to fight back. Let's talk about it." As Officer Houston spoke, the night wrapped around them, a cocoon of vulnerability and fear. With every word, he noticed the man's grip on the railing lessened, fingers trembling as he inched back towards safety. The darkness that had engulfed him began to waver, revealing glimmers of hope. Suddenly, the man's shoulders slumped and he began to cry. "I don't want to die. I just felt so lost." The fierce battle in his eyes melted into desperation. "I can't do this anymore." "And no one expects you to do it alone," Houston replied earnestly. "Reach out to me. I'm here." I'm with you. Let's find your way back. With one final hesitant step, the man turned from the edge, collapsing into Houston's waiting embrace. The officer grounded himself, wrapping his arms around the trembling form, feeling the weight of despair begin to lift. This was the heart of law enforcement he had cherished through the years, not just the act of wearing a badge, but the ability to connect, to save a life when it teetered on the brink. As the sirens echoed faintly in the distance, announcing the arrival of backup, Houston held on to that moment, knowing that perhaps for one night, both he and the man he saved had confronted their own devils and emerged into the light together. But as everyone left, Officer Houston gazed at his rearview mirror and saw something that chilled him to his core. A dark figure glaring at him from his backseat with flaming red eyes, gnashing his teeth, grinding loud and saying,
"I will be back. You have not won yet."
Then a long laugh that echoed in Houston's head. Officer Houston was terrified, but also knew that he had met this evil before. He looked again in the mirror, and it was gone. I will never forget that night long ago. One life saved as I cheated the devil himself. If he ever comes for me for another visit, and I'm sure he will, I beat him once, and I'll do it again. In the small town of Sensabaugh Tunnel, nestled between shadowy hills and thick, scary woods, the autumn air cried with an unsettling energy as Halloween approached. Legends wove through the town like fog, and as darkness fell, stories of hauntings and horrors surged among the people huddled around flickering campfires. Yet, there was one tale that sent shivers down the spines of even the bravest souls. A story known as the Sensabaugh Witch. Every Halloween, people gathered at Sensabaugh Tunnel Church, which is no longer in use on the edge of town. Tonight, the air was thick with anticipation as candles illuminated the faces of the people of the town. As the clock struck 9, a hush fell over the crowd. Old Man Duncan, the town's unofficial historian and storyteller, stood up. He walked towards the old, broken-down podium, the boards creaking as he took each step. His gray hair looked like smoke, and his voice trembled like the leaves blowing in the wind. "There's a reason you've all come," he began, his eyes filled with a mixture of anxiety and dread. "You want to hear the Sensabaugh Witch story." A fear and excitement rushed through the crowd as they leaned forward, for they were interested in each word being spoken. "Long ago, in a time when Sensabaugh Tunnel was nothing but a collection of log cabins," Duncan began, "there lived a woman named Rebecca. She was beautiful, with hair as dark as this night and a smile that would cut even the hardest of hearts. But she held a terrible secret. She was a witch. Rejected by the community, they dubbed her an evil monster, and she was shunted, turned away by all." Duncan's voice grew softer as he spoke of Rebecca's heartache and loneliness. But Rebecca's power was unmatched. In her sorrow, she vowed revenge upon those who wronged her. One full moon night, she vanished into the woods, never to be seen again. Or did she? An evil feeling echoed through the crowd. Years passed, and the woods grew thick with tales of her vengeful spirit. Children whispered of her wandering the forest, seeking revenge on those who had wronged her. Some claimed to have seen her, a shadow among the trees, and just thought it was a sleight of the eye and not real at all. Duncan leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. But this is where the story takes a dark turn. On the eve of one Halloween, a group of brave souls decided to uncover the truth. Ignoring the warnings, they proceeded deep into the woods, armed with nothing but youthful curiosity and the expectation that nothing would really happen. An uneasy shuffling spread through the audience as they recalled tales of those who had disappeared into the woods. One by one, they encountered strange things. Echoes of laughter that turned into cries, gusts of wind for no reason, and shadows that just beyond the line of sight. Then, amongst the chilling wind, they felt her presence. Rebecca emerged in a mist, her beauty distorted by years of pain and loneliness. "You dare disturb me in my domain," she hissed, her voice a haunting melody that seemed to squeeze their hearts, causing pain in the chest. "You who rejected me and cast me to the forest, you will pay for your evil ways. It is my time now." The fire blazed, and then everyone leaned closer, their breath sticking in their throats. Out of fear, they turned to run, but the forest trees and bushes entangled them as if she had commanded it around them and trapping them in its snare. One by one, they faded as if the darkness had engulfed them until only one remained. Young Thurman, who had once mocked her and dared her to appear to him. Now his laughs were turned into crying as tears fell and dropped to the forest floor. As Thurman stood trembling, continued Duncan, Rebecca's spirit came closer. In a moment of desperation, he begged for her forgiveness, not realizing it was too late. As she grabbed him by his throat, ripping her long nails deep in his skin, his blood dripping and running down his neck. "What you sought to harm, you have now awakened," she yelled, with an evil smile, pulling his face next to hers, her evil breath sting as she hissed at him. She then vanished into the night, taking Thurman with her. Duncan paused, his eyes scanning the audience, relishing their growing dread. To this day, when the leaves rustle and the winds howl, you can hear the tortured cries of those who'd ventured too far, for Sensabaugh Tunnel still remembers. And every Halloween, when the curtain between worlds thin, Rebecca stirs, seeking companionship in her sorrow and vengeance. If you listen closely, you might hear her call your name. At that point, a rush of wind came, and they heard the name Thurman whispered in each ear. The townsfolk shivered. The air thickened with tension as silence hit the crowd. Just then, another sudden gust of wind swept through the old church, blowing out the candles in an instant. A cold dread washed over everyone as whispers seemed to swirl around them again, echoing through the room, merging with the trees outside. In the darkness, panic rose, and people there scrambled for the door, desperate to escape. But as they stumbled from the church into the night, they could hear old man Duncan laugh into the top of his lungs as he called her name. "Rebecca, my sweet, sweet grandchild, it is your time to get revenge. Come to us now." One realization gripped their hearts. They knew it was her night. Several of the townspeople went missing, never to be seen again.